Two vascular surgeons walk into a bar and come out with a podcast. We are talking everything vascular and not. Welcome to the Life of Flow podcast.
The following podcast is not relating to my teachings and work at Del Cedar Medical Center and is for entertainment purposes only.
Bienvenuti. This is the Life of Flow, episode number 4002.
Direct from
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
With our Mardi Gras look.
It looks awesome.
Looks good.
I love it.
Anywho, today we are having a great conversation with Tim Blair. Tim and I go a while back, known him in many roles. He's worn many masks, as you'll, many hats, not masks, as you'll hear very shortly here soon. And right now he is leading as a CEO and co-founder a company, a startup by the name of ICHOR, which is focusing on novel thrombectomy devices, both for arterial, venous, and hemodialysis access. I think you'll find the conversation really good. It's one of those that's going under the entrepreneur series. So if you've got the worm, stick around. You'll learn a lot from this one.
Vamos.
Let's go. Well, Tim, so awesome to have you finally here. You and I have gone back and forth, but coordination is always a complex thing when you have smart, busy guys. And so we finally nailed you. And so it's great to have you here. This is, I would say, one of those shows that should make entrepreneurs out there happy, like myself, because it's always great to have a conversation with somebody that can show you a path that they've taken. It doesn't necessarily mean it's your path, but it could be an inspiring path, right? So anyway, Tim, I know you. You don't necessarily know Lucas very well, but I also know that a lot of other people maybe out there that are listening know Tim. He's been in this vascular world for a while. But for those that haven't been lucky enough to have met you, it would be great to have you give us a high little summary of what your path has been and what led you to now be in ICHOR and leading the way with some pretty cool new devices. But let's start there, huh?
You got it. Well, thank you both, and give you a little bit of my background. I'm a career MedTech guy, so I've spent now the better part of 33 years, I think, in the medical device space. Everything from kind of early in my career, sales and marketing roles, kind of carrying the bag. I'd say most of that career is in the peripheral vascular, cardiovascular space. Moved into some roles where kind of managing GPOs, managing, marketing departments, strategic accounts, and the like, even some M&A, business development activity. So very commercially facing type of person. I guess I lead with sales still today. And then about halfway through, my career, I shifted gears and I joined an organization called NAMSA. And NAMSA is more of it's kind of funny. I always tell the story. I used to, beat up on R&D and regulatory people, right? Why do things take so long? I don't understand the problem, why we can't tweak this, why we can't change that. Everything's a problem. Everything's a delay. And then I joined NAMSA and I really understood regulatory, the gauntlet that is the R&D process and really the broader innovation, how hard it is. And I gained a new appreciation for what the R&D side looks like and how hard it is to move things through a highly regulated pathway. And so at NAMSA, I led a lot of those strategic growth initiatives, really in the spirit of taking NAMSA, which was a biocompatibility testing firm, right? Animal lab testing, which is required stuff for the FDA and notified bodies, and really trying to reshape the way NAMSA looks at innovation. What are those services that we could put under one umbrella that a Medtronic and a Philips and a Terumo or a J&J could really appreciate, right? And could help innovation because you're learning instead of working in silos, right? You could combine these regulatory and quality and clinical trial and preclinical. Could you bring it together in the spirit of just moving more efficiently through what is really a rough process, a slow process? And so that I was leading a lot of those initiatives. And the reason I share that background is that's really what brought me to ICHOR. As I looked at my really two careers, right? Sales and marketing, relationships with physicians, understanding unmet needs, and then the ability to really navigate, a regulatory pathway efficiently kind of led me to ICHOR, right? And so we were working on things even when we were at NAMSA. We were looking at a lot of thrombectomy things. We were studying a lot of mechanisms of action in animals. And it was really, that was our aha moment, working with a handful of physicians. Just kind of the aha moment was, can we just stop using these big metal dragging tools? Can we stop using high speeding, high RPM? We're really not moving the needle a whole lot in outcomes. And our philosophy then quickly became, the Fogarty balloon kept being our predicate. We kept saying, that damn mechanism of action works really well. Why don't we just make that endovascular? And then we basically built fundraising around that. We built the prototypes, and I would tell you there were probably 20 vascular surgeons that were our early investors who, I would tell you, almost all of them said, I thought of that 25 years ago. I thought of that, right? I think we all thought of it.
Yeah.
We just finally got the cahoots to go out and basically do it and build a company around it. And that's what got us to ICHOR. Our thesis is really that simple, is can we just take that proven mechanism of action and can we just make it work in a percutaneous kind of endovascular setting that doesn't have to be the end-all be-all things clot, just a great tool that vascular surgeons trust, they love, and that it'll give them broad utility to treat a lot of vascular occlusions. And that's what brought us to where we are today at ICHOR. So
What
that's my background.
I was before
Yeah.
we get super deviated of the past. I just love to just frame it as, you were in a sales position, then you went on to this regulatory position, still working for others. And correct me if I'm wrong, but now you are a part owner of this company, right? ICHOR. Okay. So meaning you had corporate positions, you had a W-2, you were grinding, you answered to a bunch of people, and in this other phase, you obviously have probably a board and investors that you answer to, and you have a job, but you are an entrepreneur, right? This is your flagship, and you'd obviously want this to do very well. But I want to understand what took you this long to get to this point, because I've heard the saying, you are born an entrepreneur, you will always be an entrepreneur. um, and some people don't even go to college because they start grinding in their own little businesses and fixing stuff, right? Whoever knows. Long-winded way to just say, you did this at a senior point in your career where you were probably in a very good place to stay in places like NAMSA, or to uh, stay or go back to some VP role with a Boston or a Medtronic, but you opt to do a change. And so I want to know a little bit of that psyche. How was that first part of your career? Was there a bug always in you, or is it more of a very late thing that you're like, you know what, I'm gonna just do this and I'm gonna take the leap of faith? And I'd love a little bit more of that contextual, personal side in the evolution of your profession.
I think, thanks, Miguel. That's great, because that's something I've talked about with some of my other CEO networks, if you will, is that leap is tough, right? So by way of background, you're exactly right, right? I could have stayed at a big company, great, you got things like pensions, you got nice 401ks, it's pretty cush. And by the way, the job there at any of those companies was just kind of, as long as you don't screw up, it's a great place to retire. I mean, I could have easily taken that pathway, right? And it would have been very comfy, family would have been great. It just wasn't me, Miguel. It was one of those things that I found myself in any company I was with. I was a little bit frustrated, whether it was even AngioDynamics, which at the time was very entrepreneurial, fast moving, but we got to a stage where things started to slow down. R&D slowed down. We got new J&J leadership that came in. Things just changed. And I just said, man, this is this is not me. I want to go. I want to move. And so I guess to answer your question, there's always a little bit of a bug there, kind of an entrepreneurial bug, if you will. I thrived in that environment. And I recognized with some of the bigger companies, I didn't thrive very well in bureaucracy. And I found myself frustrated, trying to change things, trying to move things that just weren't going to move. And so, yeah, I think I got to a point in my career where what's great about working for the big companies is you learn a lot. It's a great place to learn. It's a great place to learn how to manage people, how to manage processes. And so I don't think I get there truly on my own. I think having that background and that knowledge and that expertise allowed me to say, you know what? There was a tipping point and the opportunity and being ready for the opportunity, right? To say, I really love this concept. And we could moonlight a little bit to kind of push it along, but we pushed it far enough and we had enough investment interest to say, you know what? I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing. And I'm just going to, we jokingly, I use this with Sean Morris and Jeff Elkins and others to say, you just have to have the grapes to do it, because to just do it half-assed, nobody's investing in half-assed. Nobody's investing in hobbies, so it took me taking that leap of faith to say, I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to take some risks here. And that was hard to do. But now that we've made that leap for the last couple, I'd say 3 years, we've been full-time at this. It's scary, right? But it's also very motivating, because, you're banking on a project. You're hoping things work out well. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of unpredictability, and navigating that is kind of a daily challenge. So, Miguel, I love your question, because it was, there were some tough moments there with the family and discussions to say, I'm gonna leave something very cush, and you got a wife who's saying, you're gonna do what?
Yeah.
But I did it, and
It's
had an
done.
awesome learning.
It comes at a cost, and it's a bit of a gamble too, right? You don't know. When you have a W-2, you wake up every day and you know that there's a certainty of a paycheck coming your way. And in a way, I think that puts you in this state of, as you said it, of okayness. Other people call it the comfort zone. And guess what? When you are in your comfort zone, your motivation to grow, your motivation to go through any metamorphosis, and pull yourself up is limited.
Yeah. Tim, can you talk about, when you were exploring the idea and all these thoughts and rackets come into your head about the risks, how did you manage that? And like, if you don't mind sharing, like what risks like really took the most energy out of you, and then what was your final mental process to say, you know what, I'm just going to bet on myself and I'm going to make this happen?
Love it, Lucas. So the biggest risk was the risk of payroll, getting paid consistently every, twice a month. The benefits were a big one, right? There were some things that, as we were weighing these decisions, as wow, so I'm going to have to go out and get my family benefits. I'm betting on myself to be able to raise this money to even have a pretty pathetic pay, right? I'm sacrificing some things here for the risk of something bigger and better. I would tell you, Lucas, a big part for me was, you kind of touched on it, Miguel. I wanted to continue to grow, right? I didn't want to be middle to senior management. Like that to me was just, it wasn't what I wanted to do in life. I wanted to go out and I wanted to make a difference and prove to the world that, I could do these things, right? So it was a little bit of a challenge for myself. And I can tell you out of the gates, there were 6 or 7 months where I didn't take a paycheck. You talk about growth, you talk about urgency. I mean, you think you're prepared as a somebody who saved a lot of money and thought, okay, I'll be okay. I can weather this. Woo. that goes really fast, and it gets very uncomfortable very quickly. And so it forced me to grow, right? It forced me to move, and it really, it tested my belief system. Do you really believe in what you're doing, or do you just go back and hang them up and just go back to industry? And I refused to go there. I believed in what we were doing, and kind of had to fight and navigate my way through it. And I'm a bigger and stronger person for it. I mean, everything you go through, that turmoil, those challenges have certainly added to my growth and added scars to the back and lessons learned. So I'm happy I went through it.
What part of you, when you look back at Tim, at corporate Tim, and when you look now at present Tim, what do you think has changed the most in you?
I would say that the depth of growth is certainly part of it, right? Really understanding what it means to be an entrepreneur. I think from a development standpoint, how to navigate difficult situations, right? Truly challenging situations. I guess in the past I've used the word diplomacy, right? That you can't be explosive. You can't fight certain processes and systems. You have to figure out a way to be diplomatic through those processes and to make things move, right? The bull in the china shop stuff doesn't work very well. So I think it's a maturity thing, probably more than anything, Miguel, is being mature about how to handle those conversations and those challenges, and finding diplomatic and logical ways to navigate those. I think that's just a big thing in my development, my career over the last few years, that, without going through it, I'm not sure I could tell you I would have grown the way I've grown in that.
Do you find, Miguel, do you find yourself being more diplomatic?
I
Easier
despite
said than done.
You know what? Here's the deal. So Lucas has this preconception. Him and his significant other both have this mission to transform me into a better version of myself, because they believe I'm incredibly explosive. I think, to Tim's point, that I am transforming. And I say it in the sense of maybe emotional intelligence, right? It doesn't, because here's the deal. What I think is when I look at myself before and I was in an academic facility, is it was almost like I didn't really care of what would happen, right? It was a little bit less, because I'm like, if I fuck it up, I'll go to another hospital, right? Or if I fuck it up, I'll get another job. And when you are all in, when your chips are on the table, and you have a bank note or investors or all these other external things that are contingent on your emotional intelligence, on your cognitive performance, you realize that you can't be that way. And so, yes, I probably still need to work on myself, Lucas. But I do believe that I am a much more subdued version of who I was. And I have learned, before I would answer an email on my phone, right? And it would be like some dumb, stupid thing that I would just blast out.
All caps.
Yeah, caps or exclamation marks and now I'll get an email that irritates me, and my first rule is never to answer it. Never answer an email on a day zero. So I'll let it linger, or if I have a business situation, I'll let it linger a day or two or three. Maybe I'll even talk to ChatGPT about it.
Dude, ChatGPT is like my therapist. I talk to it all the time.
I'll put it in ChatGPT, and I was like, I'm really pissed at this email. And then he'll give me an entire summary of why I shouldn't be pissed, or, I'm like, hey, can you steel man this position? I love saying that, as steel man this for me, because I think I'm being, I'm not happy about this, or I'm not content about this. And so he'll give me positions where I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can see it on this other person's way. But yeah,
What voice did you give ChatGPT?
I don't know. I selected some dude.
Me too. Like a bro. Like it talks to me like a bro. It's like, hey, bro, that whatever email, don't send it.
But you do that, and I think it then so yeah, everything matters. Everything matters, right? Every decision, you're gonna where you're gonna produce the catheter. What quality is that catheter gonna be of, and how many days are they gonna take to produce your, how does that impact your sales? How are you gonna deploy the sales team? What's the strategy? Like every decision matters. Every hire. That's the other thing.
Mm,
Before I lived in a structure where I would say, "Hey, I need an assistant,"
yeah.
and then HR would hire me somebody, and I would probably maybe interview them once, and I was like, "Whatever, they'll either work or not." Now, no way. I will not hire you unless we've had dinner together or breakfast. I'm gonna psychoanalyze you really weirdly. I'm gonna have
What's
you.
questions?
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna put weird questions that push people away, but I'll pressure test, I'll put scenarios of like, "Hey, here's this, here's that. What would you do?"
Yeah.
And I mean, hiring. What do you think about hiring, Tim? Let's talk about hiring. When you're hiring people in your company, you have a limited amount of chips, but you also want good people. That balance
Can't make too
between
many mistakes.
how do you
That's the other
decide, right? Because I mean, you could say, okay, this guy's awesome, but he's expensive,
Mm-hmm.
but he's got a track record. So do you go with proven but expensive? Or am I going to pull somebody green, maybe less, save the money, but I know that that person, I can shape them. But then do I want to, waste the time, shape this person on a short run, on a short company run? What's your thoughts on hiring staff as you've come now to these 3 years out, and understanding that each person you hire is critical for that role?
We have a couple things, Miguel. We have so in our bylaws at ICHOR, one of the first things we put in is we have a bylaw or a bullet in there called "No assholes allowed."
Oh,
That's part of our merchandise.
that's our part of our merch. Yeah.
So we
NAA.
at Euphrates, Sean and I had this whole NAA.
NAA,
We
baby.
Okay,
created
we're doing this merch.
we created an NAA fund even when we were at Euphrates, and that's just kind of stuck with us at ICHOR because it sounds dumb, right? But we bring it up in decision making, not just hiring, but a lot of decision making when we're looking at suppliers or we're looking at certain things, and we say, you know what? They're just difficult to work with, and there's something weird. I don't like them. I don't like that group, and we kind of say, well, that fits NAA,
NAA.
and we need to move on, right? We're not going to work with difficult people. We're not, and so I think we kind of start with that kind of mindset, not just that people are assholes. It's just more of a kind of a mindset that we want to work with people we like, people we trust. And Miguel, I think it's getting to where you're going is you work. I don't want to work with people that don't fit, right? Do you have that entrepreneurial spirit? There are certain qualities. There are some really talented people we look at, and I look at them and I'm like, they're not going to fit. This is a wonky world when you're working in startup land. And this is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. I see a lot of people say, Tim, I want to do what you do. I want to join and do what you guys do. And I'm telling you, they will fail miserably because it's not very well structured. There's a lot of problem solving every single day. There's problems that pop up and all hands are on deck. I mean, that's pretty much our lives every single day. And that doesn't work for a lot of sales and marketing people. And so I would just say we're very hyper focused when we bring people on that they've embraced that entrepreneur. Maybe they've lived it a little bit in their lives. So always kind of looking for that. But really, it's more of the qualities. And I think the biggest one for me is hunger. Are you truly hungry? What motivates you? And I really try to zero in on when I see hungry people, I know it. And I want those people around me. I want people who kind of want my job. I want people who are just ready to conquer and ready, they have incredible problem solving skills. I think that's a quality that probably more than anything. And I do the same, Miguel. I get out to dinners, put them in the field. I put them in front. I want to see how they behave and really kind of see if I see that hunger come through on a day in, day out basis. That's just for me, a quality that I really like as part of our team. And I think we all feed off of that. The more hunger we have, we're all kind of,
Yeah.
I like to see how they interact
So
with the waiter.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How do you treat people?
I find it like, how do you interact with the waiter? How do you order your food? I know this
Oh,
is psychotic.
tell me. Okay, tell me what you look
Like,
for.
I don't want, I'm not into like, oh, is there whatever this thing on it, and like I don't want it super cooked,
Indecisiveness.
but I don't want it relatively cooked, and I don't like all these like weird starting to
drama.
Indecisive. You don't like them to be
even
indecisive.
you can't even why are you nitpicking at a menu? It's a damn menu. You want to cook it your way, go home, right?
Yeah.
Like, but be affirmative of what you want. Maybe ask a question.
Yeah.
I have a question about this. Do you sous vide or you put it on the grill? That's a good question. That's a
Okay.
smart question. And then also when it comes, are they saying thank you? I think
Yeah.
that's dumb, but
Yeah.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. Or, oh, hey, could you get me a little bit of salt, please? Right?
Yeah.
They're just those minor things.
So
And you
you,
get so much within 20 minutes of
so you're looking for the emotional intelligence you don't have.
See what I get, Tim?
No, but what you're talking about, Tim, is agency, and that's a big topic right now.
What does
Especially like
agency mean?
agency means problem solving. Agency means being resourceful. Every agency means being proactive. There's like a meme. If you're stuck in an island and you have a bunch of wood, do you make a sign that says help, or do you make a boat to get out of the island? If you make a boat, you have high agency. It's kind of the deal.
Got it.
And like with all this stuff coming down the pike with like AI and stuff like that, this is kind of one of the things that people are thinking that is gonna make the difference, in this new age. Like, do you have problem solving skills? Do you have motivation? And do you have agency? So it's interesting.
I think the problem solving is a big part of it, but that inner drive that exists in people, right? It's that ability to understand a vision and pick up on it and be able to kind of have your own agency, right? Or do you have that inner will to just kind of, I know where we need to be and I can get us there, right? And they have that kind of, we can't afford to hire people that are waiting for me to tell them what to do. That's not this environment, right? It's the vision is clear. We know, that I feel like that's my responsibility to kind of establish the vision based on data and criteria and feedback, where we need to be, when we need to be there, and we're going to fund it to such. And the team is kind of bought into that and is kind of making decisions and moving in that direction. If we're waiting for Tim Blair to help and authorize and tell you what to do, whew,
Yeah.
this is going to be a problem. And so really trying to surround ourselves with those types of people who have that kind of, quality about them. Again, this isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's why you've got to surround yourself with that kind of, I guess it's cliche to say entrepreneurial spirit, but it's that problem solving, it's that agency, it's that those are qualities that are, to me, imperative to have as part of any startup opportunity.
So I think we can agree at this point that the people, that the people in the company are probably one of the most critical things that they make it or break it. But maybe mention 2 or 3 more things that you think make a medtech company successful.
So I'll tell you from experience that in the fundraising process, right? Probably, so that's, as a CEO, that is a startup anyway. That's priority number one. You run out of money, we don't even have, I don't care how good your product is, right? And I would tell you the investment side thinks the same way, right? That you'll hear the little cliches, right? We'll bet on an A jockey and a B horse before we'll bet on a B team and an A horse, right? They're betting on the jockey, right? And what that means is they're betting on the people. And I can tell you, any of our investors, whether they're savvy, high net worth individuals or our angel investors who have really kind of carried us to this point, it was always about the team. They loved the technology. They loved the market, right? They're all nodding their heads. That's wonderful, Tim. Great opportunity. We get it. Looks promising. what they really wanted is, and it was more than Tim Blair. So they appreciate Tim Blair's passion and energy, and he's all in, and he's got money in, and he's got skin in the game. What it always came down to was, we want to meet the rest of your team, right? And what they were really trying to hone in on is, are these people committed? Do they have that same passion? Are they laying around at night thinking about this stuff every night? Because that's what I want to invest in. And so I can't emphasize enough, Miguel, that it's not only for me surrounding yourself with the right people to get the job done, but that's what investors want to see. In a startup, that team, to me, is what people are banking on. And I think for me, it starts with your background, your knowledge and your experiences are part of it. But I think for my investors anyway, what they wanted to see was, are these guys bought in? Do they have that passion? Do they have that energy? Do they have the team that can get this done? And so for me, team is everything, right? And assembling a team that can, get the job done and push and have all of those qualities that we just talked about. To me, it's all about the team.
So at what point, or let's put it on okay, let's say team is number one. I guess idea, concept, product is number two. I would say, I'm just trying to think. I'm an investor. I'm looking at an opportunity. I have $1 million and I want to invest some capital somewhere. I want to allocate some money. So I analyze the team, passes the test, no assholes. I like these guys, good trajectory, good networking. I would put that. These guys got to be well known and people have to know them. And by the way, in this business, if you suck, everybody will know. So for you out there, people that suck, we know who you are. Don't ask for money. But then the next step for me is product. In not only product, but product in relationship to the space. Is there a
the
need?
need? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then almost like at that same level is I think about, is it going to get paid?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of cool shit that has
doesn't get
come
paid.
my
Yeah.
way for investments, but it's like, oh, it's this new little, and I was like, how do you get reimbursement? Well, there's no code. We're going to have to build the code.
Pay
We're going to
for
have to.
Yeah.
That's a big one, right? I mean, that's a big boy project, and you have to really, really trust that. And that's a long process too. So I don't know. What do you think that I'm on the right track there as a capital investment allocator?
I think your VCs and your angel networks are pretty sophisticated in that regard, Miguel. Their rubrics, they all have their rubric, right? If some order and some weight that they kind of evaluate concepts and ideas. So I think they all kind of go through that. I would say team is probably number one on all of their lists, right? So they're looking at that. Idea is certainly a major one. I would say market opportunity is probably bigger, right? As investors, right, everybody wants returns and they want them timely. So they're probably evaluating some level of market opportunity. It's big opportunity. It's got big upside. I can get in at a low valuation and I can do it inside of 3 to 4 years, right? Nobody wants to be in these things for 10 years, right? So there's some level of upside with time that's probably evaluated in there. But yeah, I think those are probably, you've nailed some of the key criteria. I think they've gotten better over the last 4 or 5 years on things like the regulatory timing, be able to pass that sniff test. Can't just trust the CEO, right? They now they have people in their groups that really say, is this guy full of shit, or is that really the time to market, right? And now they've got reimbursement people. So anytime we do investment pitches, right? Oh, there's a reimbursement expert in there to say, and they're quizzing us on codes. So they're getting more sophisticated to really sniff out their investment opportunities around more of the detail stuff, right? The regulatory timing, the reimbursement, who's going to pay for it. So I think, and most of that is because investors have been burnt, right? They get burnt. You get burnt enough, your next investments, you start sniffing that out better. And I think that's why, not to change gears, but I think that's why VCs and angels are moving into later and later stage investments, right? It's a game of risk. Why would I continue to invest in these early stage things when I could put the same money to risk in a thing that's in early stage revenue and ready to scale, right? They've already done the regulatory. They've already done, they've knocked out a lot of those milestones. So that just speaks to a major challenge for entrepreneurs and innovators is it is getting harder and harder and harder. Our regulatory pathways are getting longer. Reimbursement's never easy. Hospital bureaucracies are really nasty. Everything is working against innovation, right? Everything's getting longer and longer. And the big boys don't want to acquire early. VCs don't want to invest early. Everybody's waiting for you to get to revenue stage. Well, how do you fund the first 10 million to get you? That valley of death is growing, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge for innovation to figure out how to get there.
But is that because money's more expensive now, just because of interest rates, or do you think if Trump takes interest down to zero again, it'll be back to throwing money out?
I don't know. So with money sitting on the sidelines, it certainly adds to the frustrations. Like in 2023, 2024, I can tell you fundraising for all of us was hard. And it kind of speaks to the macroeconomics, right? It's the uncertainty, just everybody kind of gets a little tighter, but the funds still have to deploy their funds. But what we started to see was they were deploying their funds into things they had already funded, right? They weren't funding new, which hurts young entrepreneurs because they're looking for that. And so, yeah, I think, Lucas, that adds to the challenge of fundraising. I think we're all optimistic coming off of JP Morgan anyway, right? New administration, new attitude. We came out of JP Morgan in January like, wow, things are changing. M&A is going to pick up. Everything was loosening up. And then here we are a quarter later, or a little more a quarter later, now tariffs, the new buzz. Everybody just went back into their shells. Like, Jesus Christ, here we all tightened up the sphincter again, all because it's the uncertainty. So yes, the big investment world kind of ebbs and flows as it's all based on uncertainty and risk. And so it makes it hard for them to deploy money on new, young things. They don't typically do it.
And I've talked about this, and what I say, it's like it feels like these little crabs on the sea. What are they called? The little tiny ones?
The hermit crabs?
Hermit crab.
Yeah.
In Spanish, we call them caricacos, at least in Costa Rica. But anyway, that's why, like, everybody starts coming out, and there's a little wind, and everybody goes under the shell, and then they start coming out, and and then all of a sudden there's 10 of them running like psychopaths, and then they just stop, and then that's what it's felt like. It's like just up and down and up and down and up and down, and hopefully we'll balance out.
You touched on something, Tim, that I think is definitely a hurdle to innovation, which is the hospital approval process. And I get that hospitals want to be efficient, but anyway, how do you think about that? Because it's so difficult to get in.
It's a challenge, Lucas. So I talked about the innovation of death, which is really funding early stage ideas to like a regulatory approved product, right? That's a big valley to try to fund, and it's not cheap, right? This is millions and millions of dollars just to get a basic 510K from its concept to an approved, right? So that's a lot of money to figure out who's funding that. I don't have millions of dollars sitting in my pocket to self-fund it. So that's a big valley. And then you just touched on, to me, what I think all of us as CEOs that we're all kind of dealing with now is, so you got your 510K, you got your PMA, so what? Nobody cares. Now you've got to get this next valley of death, which is, hey, show us that it works in the real world. Show us some early clinical validation, real world stuff, not your pre-approval crap. Show us that the reimbursements are real, right? They want you now to check all these boxes And you just touched on it, is that next phase. So when I started in sales, back in the 90s, and when I was at Angiodynamics in 2000, Eamon Hobbs would give me a new wire. I'm not even sure if it was FDA approved at the time. And we would take it into labs and we would use it the next day. It was that easy, right? And hey, doc, hey, I got a new thing. I got a new stent. Oh yeah, let's try one tomorrow. I got a case tomorrow. We'll try. That's gone, right? The days of even getting an evaluation. I'm at University of Miami yesterday, and they're like, God, value analysis process is going to be 9 months. I don't even know if we're going to like it, but we're going to run it through a terrible process just to evaluate 3 or 4 of them. And then we may not even like it. But the whole process just frustrates the hell out of us. But that's a reality that we're facing right now as young entrepreneurs, is we've got to now validate it in the real world. No hospitals want to move fast. There's no motivation for them. I'm a new vendor. Nobody wants a new vendor on their vendor list. And nobody's really anxious to try new products. The doctors are. The doctors are like, hey, we're excited. We want to try new stuff. Their hands are tied, right? So it's a real challenge for young companies to figure out how do you get through that? And it's a long, slow process. And by the way, I'll just end it with this, Lucas, is we're incredibly, at ICHOR anyway, we're incredibly capital disciplined on the sales process. We do not have a sales force. And the reason we don't is we want to continue to validate the technology in the real world in a controlled manner, because our fear is, and we've seen this happen to a lot of companies that got their approval, they doubled down on 15, 20 sales reps. That's a huge expense. Reps are not cheap, right? These are $300,000-$400,000 employees. Some of them are making more, and you're convincing them to come over to a new fun thing. And your ROI is more than 2 years on that at best. That's assuming they're really, really good. Companies burn out left and right. Right. So you talk about startup failures. A lot of those failures had nothing to do with, there were some good products there. They were good. They burnt through too much cash too fast. And some of it's board pressure, right? I deal with it. My board's like, you got to go. You got to hire all those salespeople. You got to move them. And I'm going, they don't understand sales process. They don't understand the terrible ROI that exists in that. And that it's just bigger money. If we're going to do that, that's a Series B, and that's a different. And so really me managing and understanding that and communicating that to a board, that you're setting yourself up for failures, guys. That I get it. We all want to go, but sales process is really challenging. And hospitals obviously are at the root of that.
And you know how I think it affects us in a way is a lot of companies, early stage, let me try to see if I can accommodate all my flight of ideas right now. But early stages, I sense are coming to doctors more. This is through my lens. I have never had so many people ask me for money as I've had in the last 5 years. Why? Putting it into context, I think the early money is not coming from where it came before. Because a lot of these, you said it very well. You articulated perfectly. You said these guys with the big pockets want the risk to be shaved off the top. So then who does that risk is falling on? I feel that they're like, oh, well, doctors are easy targets because they've got monies, they're making good money, and maybe they want to bet and they see some products and some companies being sold, and this company got bought for millions of dollars and that company got bought for millions of dollars. And so all of a sudden they're like, man, I should invest in this. Okay. But then what happens is you have that core people that came in early in Series A, your class 1A, whatever you want to call them. And now you're going to move the needle to this other element of, now what do we do? Now do we have to sell? Now do we have to create a sales force? Now do we have to grow? And then guess what? That's what you're saying. Now comes Series B or C or D, right? And what happens is, because you get to that point where now you're burning, you're about to lose millions of dollars if this keeps going in. There's desperation, there's board pressure. And so what happens is now that's red meat for VCs because now they're like, okay, I love this. I will give you the $50 million you guys need, but guess what? I'm going to get paid first. Y'all are going to get paid in the next 10 years. And we're going to, for those first suckers that came in, for the first doctors, for the first employees that have stock options,
Yeah.
those people will never see their life.
Erased.
They're erased. And so you, I think, get it in the sense of how cautious you have to get to that point. And I think it's really important because you are really protecting that core of people that initially bet on you. And, and it's not that it's easy to go and raise funds, but it's easy to raise funds irresponsibly. I would put it that way. And so
Well, think about this, Miguel. I'm perfectly aligned as a founder, and I've put a lot of money in along with my co-founders, right? I'm perfectly aligned with my current investors, right? And so therefore I fight. And I'll just give you the example that kind of aligns with what you said is, if I go back last year, we had VC money lined up, right? I could have taken on $20 million. I didn't think we were ready for 20 million, but I liked the idea. But it goes back to what Lucas said, the cost of the money. So it sounds great, right? You're like 20 million. Hey, ICHOR raised a Series A $20 million. Looks awesome in the rags, right? The cost of that money was essentially basically saying, I'm giving away more than 50% of the business in one transaction. And it kind of goes to that what would have happened to those early investors. They're basically they're not zeroed out, but the opportunity is kind of gone for them. They really don't stand to make a whole lot of money, even if we sold this for a ton of money. It's kind of like, ugh, they got squashed in that transaction. So I chose to do something different, that I had to raise money for high net worth individuals and less sophisticated angel investors, right? Angel groups that kind of consolidated some money, and I had to fund it a different way to reach the milestones. I thought I said, we can do this for 5 to 6 million. We can get to those milestones. I don't need 20 million to get there. And so it was cost of capital, right? And I think it's because this CEO just happens to be perfectly aligned with the early investors. That doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes groups have a new CEO come in and he doesn't have the same early risk. He may take the 20 million and say, well, what do I care? I was hired as a CEO to build this valuation, and the VCs have put me in place to go do this. And so that happens in startup world where you get a little bit of misalignment, and the VCs are good. They take advantage of that. They're ready to jump on that stuff. So, and by the way, we may get there someday. We're not there today, and we won't be there in 2026. I've tried to avoid that desperation that you spoke of, but I can certainly see where, some companies they get to that stage where your options are bankruptcy, or you take the VC money and you go, and the latter is a better option in that scenario. So trying to avoid that and try to navigate that, Miguel, is a constant challenge, and it's all about capital discipline, managing that dollar every single day, trying to make sure it's driving value, and placing the right bets, right? I mean, that's what our job is right now, and it's easier said than done.
Tim, we have about maybe 10 minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about ICHOR. When you were at NAMSA,
we've been talking for an hour about ICHOR.
about the specifics. No, let's talk about the specifics of.
You mean like their products or what?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. About the products. Like, what was it about this particular product that captivated your attention? And you saw a great fit.
Oh, yeah, Lucas. I mean, I grew up in peripheral vascular space, so my networks were guys like you, and if I go way back in time, right, it's the Barry Katzens and Jim Beninati's of the world, and that's kind of what I grew up in. So thrombectomy has always been something that it's been dear to my heart, and I think as I is I started to learn more about, from NAMSA, right, development pathways, helping companies navigate those pathways, and truly gaining a lot of experience in that. ICHOR slowly became a reality, and why we became passionate about it was, and I know there's a lot of competitors in the thrombectomy space, but we always held true to the fact that just because things spin real fast, just because there's big mechanical things on them, it didn't necessarily lead to the right outcomes. And we just believed that there's an awesome place for it's a tools in the toolbox approach, right? It's impossible in our minds. It was always impossible to say, yeah, we're just going to create the tool that's just going to get all things clot, lungs, legs. To us, we're like, that's crazy. That isn't, people don't get it. We just need we just need tools for our surgical partners. And we saw this as an opportunity, just like, it's just another tool in the toolbox. We're not trying to say aspiration's terrible. Yeah, aspiration's a great tool, but there are things aspiration can't do. And I think that's where our mindset has always been, is a versatile tool that's endovascular in nature, that can address some of the shortcomings and be a tool that physicians can use on a lot of different scenarios. And I would say, coupled with that, and it was always important to us, is we were trying to think about the future, right? So again, growing up in dialysis, growing up in some of these other vascular procedures, there's a trend there, right? Atherectomy followed the trend. These patients, there's going to be more and more things we can do in the ASC OBL setting. But in order to do it, there's got to be, the health economics had to be there. So we've always been developing with that mindset to say, we want to create that platform that, yes, it'll probably start in hospital, and that's where we'll gain our early traction, but that can be adopted in an OBL ASC setting. And therefore it's got to fit. That's a whole different reimbursement game, right? That's a whole different conversation. But if we truly believe that's where the trend is going, and it will go there, and it's already happening, then we've got to build the tools that can fit into that environment. And I think that's exactly where we're heading. Is we don't have our cost of goods there yet, because we're a little company and we don't have the volume, but it's there, right? With volume and with, leveraging buying power that a big company can do that we can't do, we can get the cost of goods there that can start to be a viable tool, an everyday tool for an OBL or an ASC. That's our, kind of must-haves, and that's what we've built our vision around.
Because right now you have an arterial and a venous device. Am I correct?
So you've got a 7 French for the arterial anatomy. So that's a kind of an up and over, kind of a contralateral approach, a 7 French system. Just think of it as a introducer sheath, guide catheter with a funnel, and then a rapid exchange Fogarty, right, to allow you to go all the way to the ankle. So above the knee, below the knee treatment options with that compliant balloon gives you a lot of versatility. And then on the venous side today, it's a popliteal 14 French stick, and really just treating straightforward, kind of acute, subacute, iliofemoral disease. I would say next generation, Miguel, is kind of IJ approach for the DVT side. So IJ approach that we believe can also serve as a contralateral approach. So we're trying to work on a singular system that a doctor could use up and over venous, or could use the same device from an IJ perspective. And then on the arterial side, our focus is going to be on dialysis. So we'll make an 8 French. Won't be the 7 French, but it'll be an 8 French, basically a guide catheter and a Fogarty, a very simple tool that we think, if we can price under $500, can become an everyday dialysis graft and fistula tool. Simple.
Wow, yeah.
It'll fit inside of your existing 8 French sheath. You just go in there, pull, aspirate a little bit, go back in, pull some more. Gives you just a low-cost tool that can be deployed. You don't, if it's $1,000, people won't pull it, right? So we've got to figure out the cost of goods and make it fit in that dialysis reimbursement world.
Well, let me set an invite here for a future dive. We do some casts are like this talks, and some are what we call case casts, where what we do is we actually nail into a product, particularly into their details, the technical details. And maybe we would love if you make an introduction to a physician champion or two that can be on the show and show us some cases that we can share with our audience. So I'll leave that up in the air, and it would be really cool if we could do that, because I think people would love to know more about this, because we obviously delved a lot today on your journey and the journey of the company, but I would love to also get a little bit more on the technical aspect, which we don't have time for today, but it'd be cool to do it on another day.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, a $500 dialysis.
Market approval will
Yeah.
take you up on that.
Boom.
No, a $500 dialysis access thrombectomy device or apron sheath in a Fogarty platform. That's interesting.
Tim, what about for all those billionaire doctors that follow this show around the world? Are you taking money in? Is the company raising funds? Is at any point in time interest to have some doctors help out?
Yeah, not at this time, Miguel. I wish I could say yes. I mean, we closed our round last year, so we successfully closed our Series A, which gives us kind of 2026 kind of runway, maybe more. Depends on our revenue ramp, how fast. But I think our future is one of two things. I want to accelerate everything we do, right? So as a startup, you have limited resources, limited budgets. You got to make very conscious. You can't run too many things in parallel. You just got to be careful about overextending your cash burn. I think there's one of two pathways for us is as we come to market, we're going to be focused on clinical validation, proof in the real world. That'll be our focus, followed by sales, scaling sales, right? And to me, scaling sales is one of two things. Either we partner with industry because it's about acceleration, right? So it's could be M&A activity, could be distribution, but rather than trying to recreate the sales wheel, are there methods by which we can partner with industry, either through distribution or through M&A or milestone-based pay, whatever, because that's a better way to accelerate the technology. For ICHOR to build sales infrastructure, just takes too long, right?
Yeah.
The other option is to run a Series B, to truly scale sales, right? And I think that's kind of our future, is just validate this thing in the real world, make sure the tools are working and doing, and innovate, right? We'll be able to iterate and do some things along the way, all gearing up towards kind of that next sales scalable event, which is either A or B, most likely for us.
All right. So for you millionaires out there, sorry. I tried, though. I tried to.
Yeah, well, there might be an opportunity.
I tried to get
there
in
might
there.
be an opportunity in the future.
There may be a little
Yeah.
life of flow mini fund. You never know.
Oh my God.
But listen, I can't wait to see this story. I know it's going to be one of success, just because I know you and I know that you have that drive. So if at any point in time you want to come back and tell us a little bit and share with the world some of those success stories, more of those success stories, we'd love to be here for you. So thanks for sharing this great time with us today, man. It's been awesome.
It was really good.
Well, really appreciate you both. Love your podcasts. I am one of those guys who on an airplane or long drives, I put them on, right? I enjoyed Mike Jaff's.
Yeah.
I enjoyed George Adams, right? So, and Sean Morris, right? I'm a listener, so I do chime in once in a while. I appreciate what you guys are doing. A lot of fun.
All right,
brother. Thank you very much for being there.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
You bet. Thank you guys.